How are you guys doing? Today is Thursday, March 18th, 2021, out here in this quarantine. I'm James Sims, and for this episode of The Elite, I'm going to review the Elite performances from yesterday, Wednesday, March 17th, and of course, I'm going to preview everything today as we navigate through the world of sports one day at a time. With the NFL season being complete as of February and the MLB season not starting until April 1st, I'm going to get started with the NBA, starting with last night's primetime performances. Starting in Philadelphia, the Philadelphia 76ers, the top team in the Eastern Conference, hosted the Milwaukee Bucks. And in this matchup, the Bucks would pull off a 109-105 win in overtime, especially after outscoring the Philadelphia 76ers by a combined 14 points in the second half in order to send the game into overtime in the first place. For the Philadelphia 76ers in this matchup, their elite starting point guard Ben Simmons would finish with 13 points, 10 rebounds, 12 assists, 2 steals, 2 blocks, and 7 turnovers in 45 minutes as he shot 6 for 16 from the field, and he made his only three-point attempt of the night. The leading scorer for the Philadelphia 76ers would be their starting power forward, Tobias Harris, who finished with 19 points and 9 rebounds in 44 minutes as he shot 8 for 23 from the field and a perfect 2 for 2 from the line. For the Milwaukee Bucks in this matchup, their starting shooting guard, Dante DiVincenzo out of Villanova, would finish with 20 points, 8 rebounds, 5 assists, and 3 steals in 36 minutes as he shot 7 for 16 from the field, 4 for 9 from 3, and a perfect 2 for 2 from the line. And the Milwaukee Bucks leading scorer would be their elite starting power forward, their reigning MVP and Defensive Player of the Year, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and the reigning All-Star Game MVP. I guess I have to add that in the title too. Giannis Antetokounmpo would finish with 32 points, 15 rebounds, 5 assists, and 6 turnovers in 43 minutes as he shot 13 for 22 from the field, 1 for 5 from 3, and 5 for 8 from the line. And he also hit the step-back dagger against the Sixers, the best team in the Eastern Conference, and then he actually sat down on the court against them. Pretty disrespectful, but it was a very big moment, very big shot, and I imagine this will be another page in the chapter of that is the rivalry between Giannis and Joel Embiid. With this win, the Milwaukee Bucks are now 26-14. That is the third best record in the Eastern Conference. In the playoff picture, they now sit a game and a half behind the first place 76ers and the second place Brooklyn Nets. And they now sit, 4.5 games ahead of the fourth place Miami Heat at the moment. As they've won their last 5 games, they've won 9 of their last 10. And they're inching closer and closer to the top as the Sixers' loss is moving them closer and closer to the bottom. And then with this loss, like I just said, the Sixers are now 28-13. That is tied with the Brooklyn Nets for the best record in the Eastern Conference. They have won 8 of their last 10, and in the playoff picture, the Sixers and the Nets are sitting a game and a half over the Milwaukee Bucks. Looking out to the other primetime matchup from last night, I'm going to take you to Dallas because the Dallas Mavericks hosted the Los Angeles Clippers, and the Dallas Mavericks were able to beat the Clippers 105-89 after the Mavericks were able to outscore the Clippers by 11 in the second half. And for the Los Angeles Clippers in this matchup, their goated small forward Kawhi Leonard would finish with 20 points, 7 rebounds, 7 assists, and 2 steals in 37 minutes as he shot 9 for 21 from the field, 1 for 4 from 3, and 1 for 4 from the foul line. The leading scorer for the Los Angeles Clippers would be their elite starting shooting guard, Paul George, who finished with 28 points, 7 rebounds, and 5 assists in 41 minutes as he shot 10 for 20 from the field, 5 for 8 from 3, and a perfect 3 for 3 from the line. And then for the Dallas Mavericks in this matchup, their leading scorer would be their elite starting point guard, Luka Doncic, who finished with 42 points, 6 rebounds, 9 assists, 3 steals, and 2 blocks in 43 minutes, as Luka shot 16 for 28 from the field, 6 for 11 from 3, and 4 for 5 from the foul line. With this win, the Dallas Mavericks are now 21-18. That is the 8th best record in the Western Conference. In the playoff picture, they now sit one game behind the 7th place San Antonio Spurs, and they sit one game ahead of the 9th place Golden State Warriors, who are on the outside looking in. The Mavericks have won 7 of their last 10 games, and they now sit 8 full games behind the first place Utah Jazz. And with this loss, the Los Angeles Clippers are now 26-16. That is the 4th best record in the entire Western Conference. In the playoff picture, they sit 2 games behind the defending champs Los Angeles Lakers, and they sit a game ahead of the 5th place Denver Nuggets. As the Clippers have now lost 6 of their last 10, they sit 4.5 games behind the first place Utah Jazz. Looking at the games that weren't on prime time, jumping out to Detroit, the Detroit Pistons hosted the Toronto Raptors. And in this matchup, the Pistons would beat the Raptors 116-112 after outscoring Toronto by 6 points in the first quarter and carrying that momentum through the end of the game. For the Raptors in this matchup, there's elite starting power forward Pascal Siakam would finish with 13 points, 5 rebounds, and 3 assists in 30 minutes as he shot 3 for 11 from the field and 7 for 10 from the foul line. Their starting power forward, Chris Boucher, would finish with 21 points and 5 rebounds as well as 4 blocks in 29 minutes as he shot 10 for 16 from the field on the night. And their leading before I get to their leading scorer, their elite starting point guard, Kyle Lowry would finish with 8 points, 6 rebounds, 15 assists, and 3 steals in 36 minutes as he shot 2 for 13 from the field and a perfect 4 for 4 from the line. The leading scorer for the Toronto Raptors would be their starting small forward, Norman Powell, who finished with 43 points. He has scored the most points in Toronto Raptors history without an assist. He has the franchise record now. And in 38 minutes, he was able to shoot 14 for 18 from the field, 8 for 12 from 3, and 7 for 9 from the free throw line. And for the Detroit Pistons in this matchup, their starting small forward, Jeremy Grant, would finish with 23 points in 35 minutes, shooting 7 for 16 from the field, 3 for 6 from 3, and a perfect 6 for 6 from the line. And the leading scorer for the Detroit Pistons would be their starting small forward, Saddiq Bey, who finished with 28 points and 12 rebounds, as well as 2 steals in 39 minutes, as Saddiq Bey shot 8 for 14 from the field, 6 for 10 from 3, and a perfect 6 for 6 from the foul line. With this win, the Detroit Pistons are now 11-29. That is the worst record in the entire Eastern Conference, as they currently sit 8.5 games behind the 8th place New York Knicks outside of the Eastern Conference playoff picture. They've won only 3 of their last 10 games, and they now sit 16.5 games behind the first place Philadelphia 76ers and Brooklyn Nets with this win. And with this loss, the Toronto Raptors are now 17-23. That is the 5th worst record in the entire Eastern Conference. They sit 2.5 games behind the Knicks outside of the playoff picture as they have lost their last 6 games, and they now sit 10.5 games behind the Sixers and the Nets out east. Jumping out to D.C., the Washington Wizards hosted the Sacramento Kings, and in this matchup, the Kings would beat the Wizards 121-119 as the Wizards outscored the Kings by 7 in the fourth quarter, but the Kings were able to hold off the comeback and pick up their 16th win of the season. For the Washington Wizards, their elite starting point guard, Russell Westbrook, would finish with 26 points, 14 rebounds, 10 assists, and 6 turnovers in 39 minutes as he shot 8 for 19 from the field, 1 for 3 from 3, and 9 for 12 from the free throw line. And the leading scorer for the Washington Wizards would be their elite starting shooting guard, Bradley Beal, who finished with 29 points, 6 rebounds, and 5 assists in 36 minutes as he shot 12 for 20 from the field and 5 for 6 from the foul line. And for the Sacramento Kings in this matchup, their leading scorer will be their starting point guard, De'Aaron Fox, who finished with 28 points, 7 assists, and 5 steals in 36 minutes as he shot 8 for 21 from the field, 1 for 6 from 3, and 11 for 13 from the foul line. With this win, the Sacramento Kings are now 16-24. That is the third worst record in the entire Western Conference, as they now sit 5.5 games behind the 8th place Dallas Mavericks outside of the playoff picture looking in. They have won 4 of their last 10 games, and they now sit 13.5 games behind the first place Utah Jazz out west. And with this loss, the Washington Wizards are now 14-25. That is the third worst record out east. They currently sit 5 games outside of the playoff picture behind the 8th place New York Knicks, as they have lost their last 5 games, and they now sit 13 full games behind the first place Philadelphia 76ers and the Brooklyn Nets. Jumping out to Cleveland, the Cleveland Cavaliers hosted the Boston Celtics, and in this matchup, the Cavs would beat the Celtics 117-110, carrying momentum from their first half, in which they outscored the Boston Celtics by a total of 17 points. For the Celtics in this matchup, their starting shooting guard and their first-time All-Star Jaylen Brown would finish with 28 points and 2 steals, as well as 3 blocks in 39 minutes, as he shot 11 for 26 from the field and 4 for 8 from the foul line. And the leading scorer for the Boston Celtics would be their elite starting small forward out of Duke, Jason Tatum, who finished with 29 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists, and 2 steals in 37 minutes, as he shot 11 for 24 from the field, 3 for 13 from 3, and 4 for 5 from the foul line. And for the Cleveland Cavaliers, their starting point guard Darius Garland out of Vanderbilt would finish with 25 points and 6 assists in 38 minutes, as he shot 9 for 16 from the field, 2 for 5 from 3, and 5 for 6 from the foul line. And the leading scorer for the Cleveland Cavaliers would be their starting point guard Colin Sexton, who finished with 29 points, 7 rebounds, and 6 assists in 37 minutes, as he shot 10 for 20 from the field, 2 for 5 from 3, and 7 for 7 from the foul line. With this win, the Cleveland Cavaliers are now 15-25. That is the 4th worst record in the entire Eastern Conference. They currently sit 4.5 games behind the 8th place Knicks outside of the playoff picture looking in, as they've won 5 of their last 10 games, and they sit 12.5 games behind the first place Sixers and Nets out east. And with this loss, the Boston Celtics are now 20-20. That now ties them with the Atlanta Hawks for the 6th best record in the Eastern Conference. In the playoff picture, they and the Hawks now sit half a game behind the 5th place Charlotte Hornets, and they both sit half a game ahead of the 8th place New York Knicks. The Celtics have lost their last 2 games and 5 of their last 10, as they now sit 7.5 games behind the first place Nets and Sixers out east. Jumping out to Chicago, the Chicago Bulls hosted the San Antonio Spurs, and in this matchup, the Spurs would beat the Bulls 106-99 after outscoring the Bulls by 20 points in the 4th quarter to overcome a big deficit to pick up their 21st win of the season. For the Chicago Bulls in this matchup, their leading scorer, of course, would be their first-time All-Star Zach LaVine, their starting shooting guard, who finished with 29 points, 6 rebounds, and 6 assists in 38 minutes, as he shot 12 for 21 from the field, 3 for 7 from 3, and 2 for 3 from the foul line. And for the San Antonio Spurs in this matchup, their leading scorer would be their starting center out of Utah, Jakob Poeltl, who finished with 20 points and 16 rebounds in 34 minutes. He shot 9 for 11 from the field and 2 for 5 from the foul line. With this win, the San Antonio Spurs are now 21-16. That is the 7th best record in the Western Conference. In the playoff picture, they sit a game behind the 6th place Portland Trailblazers, and they sit 1 game ahead of the 8th place Dallas Mavericks. They're sitting really comfortably in that 7th place spot out west, as they've won their last 2 games. They've won 5 of their last 10, and they now sit 7 full games behind the first place Utah Jazz out west. And with this loss, the Chicago Bulls are now 18-21. That is the 9th best record out east, as they sit 1 game behind the 8th place New York Knicks on the outside of the playoff picture looking in. They have lost 5 of their last 10 with this most recent loss, and they now sit 9 full games behind the first place Sixers and the Nets out east. Jumping out to Houston, the Houston Rockets hosted the Golden State Warriors, and in this matchup, the Warriors would beat the Rockets 108-94, especially after outscoring Houston by 24 points in the first half. And the Rockets were able to pick up their franchise worst 18th straight loss in a row. well, I guess straight in a row. That I guess they both mean the same thing. But yeah, it's that bad. For the Houston Rockets in this matchup, their starting center, Christian Wood, would finish with 21 points and 9 rebounds in 26 minutes as he shot 8 for 12 from the field. And their leading scorer would be their starting shooting guard, Kevin Porter Jr., who finished with 25 points, 7 assists, 3 steals, and 5 turnovers in 37 minutes as he shot 9 for 18 from the field, 3 for 9 from 3, and 4 for 8 from the foul line. And for the Golden State Warriors in this matchup, their goated starting point guard Stephen Curry would finish with 18 points, 5 rebounds, and 8 assists in 30 minutes as he shot 7 for 18 from the field, 2 for 11 from 3, and a perfect 2 for 2 from the line. Additionally, their possible future Hall of Fame power forward Draymond Green finished with 16 points, 12 rebounds, and 10 assists in 32 minutes as he shot 7 for 8 from the field, 1 for 2 from 3, and he sank his only free throw of the night. And the leading scorer for the Golden State Warriors will come off the bench as their shooting guard Jordan Poole would finish with 23 points in 24 minutes, as well as 2 steals, as he shot 8 for 16 from the field, 6 for 11 from 3, and he made his only free throw of the night. With this win, the Golden State Warriors are now 21-20. That is the 9th best record in the Western Conference, as they sit 1 game behind the 8th place Dallas Mavericks, as both teams have 21 wins, but the Warriors simply have 2 more losses. And with this win, they've won 5 of their last 10 as they sit 9 full games behind the first place Utah Jazz. And with this loss, the Houston Rockets are now 11-28 as they now hold the 2nd worst record in the Western Conference. They now currently sit 10 games behind the 8th place Dallas Mavericks outside of the playoff picture looking in, as they have lost their last 18 games and still somehow do not hold the worst record in the conference. But that's what's going on out west. Jumping out to Memphis, the Memphis Grizzlies hosted the reigning Eastern Conference champions, the Miami Heat. And in this matchup, the Grizzlies would beat the Heat 89-85 after a couple of back-and-forth baskets, finishing with a very clutch Ja Morant layup off the glass virtually, to give the Grizzlies their 18th win of the season over a very hot Miami Heat team. For the Miami Heat in this matchup, their elite starting center, Bam Adebayo out of Kentucky, would finish with 15 points, 12 rebounds, and 6 assists in 35 minutes as he shot 5 for 11 from the field and 5 for 6 from the foul line. And then their leading scorer would be their elite starting small forward, Jimmy Butler, who finished with 24 points and 7 rebounds in 36 minutes as he shot 10 for 20 from the field, 2 for 6 from 3, and 2 for 3 from the foul line. And for the Memphis Grizzlies in this matchup, their shooting guard off the bench, DeAnthony Melton, would tie for the team high as he finished with 13 points, 10 rebounds, 6 assists, and 2 steals in 23 minutes as the USC product shot 4 for 9 from the field and a perfect 4 for 4 from the line. Tied with them for the team high was their starting small forward, Kyle Anderson, who finished with 13 points and 5 rebounds in 31 minutes as he shot 4 for 9 from the field, 2 for 5 from 3, and 3 for 4 from the foul line. And then tied with Melton and Anderson for the team high for the Memphis Grizzlies would be their elite second-year starting point guard, Ja Morant, who finished with 13 points, 4 rebounds, and 6 assists in 36 minutes as he shot 5 for 15 from the field and 3 for 5 from the free throw line. With this win, the Memphis Grizzlies are now 18-19. That is the 10th best record in the Western Conference as they sit 2 games outside of the playoff picture behind the 8th place Dallas Mavericks. And they've won 5 of their last 10 games as they now sit 10 games behind the first place Utah Jazz out west. And with this loss, the Miami Heat are now 22-19. That is the 4th best record in the Eastern Conference. In the playoff picture, they now sit 4.5 games behind the 3rd place Milwaukee Bucks, and they also sit a game ahead of the 5th place Charlotte Hornets. Even though they've lost this most recent game, they've still won 8 of their last 10 games, and they still sit 6 games behind the 1st place Philadelphia 76ers and the Brooklyn Nets out east. just to give a sense of where the Heat are. And then last but not least, I'm going to jump out to Denver, where the Denver Nuggets hosted the Charlotte Hornets. And in this matchup, the Nuggets would mollywop the Hornets 129-104 after outscoring Charlotte by 11 in the second quarter and by 16 in the third quarter, 27 in the middle quarters. For the Charlotte Hornets in this matchup, their elite rookie starting point guard, LaMelo Ball, would finish with 14 points in 22 minutes as he shot 5 for 11 from the field, 1 for 5 from 3, and 3 for 4 from the foul line. And the leading scorer for the Charlotte Hornets would be their starting shooting guard, Terry Rozier. Scary Terry would finish with 21 points and 5 rebounds, as well as 2 steals in 27 minutes as he shot 7 for 13 from the field, 3 for 9 from 3, and 4 for 5 from the foul line. And the leading in looking at how the Denver Nuggets fared, their starting small forward, Will Barton, would finish with 23 points in 33 minutes as he shot 8 for 15 from the field and a perfect 5 for 5 from the line. Their elite starting center, Nikola Jokic, would finish with 12 points, 10 rebounds, and 10 assists in 29 minutes as he shot 6 for 7 from the field. Their elite starting point guard, Jamal Murray, would finish with 19 points, 2 rebounds, 5 assists, and 4 steals in 29 minutes as he shot 7 for 13 from the field and 5 for 11 from 3. And the leading scorer for the Denver Nuggets would be their starting small forward, Michael Porter Jr., in his third season, who would finish with 28 points and 13 rebounds in 29 minutes as he shot 11 for 17 from the field, 3 for 6 from 3, and 3 for 4 from the foul line. With this win, the Denver Nuggets are now 24-16. That is the 5th best record in the Western Conference. In the playoff picture, they now sit 1 game behind the 4th place Los Angeles Clippers, and they now sit half a game ahead of the 6th place Portland Trail Blazers. They've won their last 2 games. They've won 8 of their last 10, and they now sit 5.5 games behind the 1st place Utah Jazz out west. And then with this loss, the Charlotte Hornets are now 20-19. That is the 5th best record in the Eastern Conference. Inside the playoff picture, they now sit 1 game behind the 4th place Miami Heat, and they now sit half a game ahead of the 6th place Atlanta Hawks and the 7th place Boston Celtics. As even though they've lost this most recent game, they've won 6 of their last 10, and they sit 7 full games behind the 1st place 76ers and the 1st place Brooklyn Nets out west, to give a sense of what's going on in the East. So those are the big games from yesterday. Looking forward to what's going on today, and because today is Thursday, starting off with the primetime matchups, they will be on TNT, or actually no, tonight they will be on NBA TV. Scratch what I said earlier. At 7 o'clock, the Washington Wizards, the team that currently hold the 3rd worst record in the Eastern Conference, are going to host the Utah Jazz, the team that are currently hosting the best record in the entire NBA at 7 o'clock, as the Jazz look to be the first team in the NBA to hit 30 wins. And then following that, on prime time at 10:30, the reigning NBA champs, the Los Angeles Lakers, who are currently holding on to, I believe, the 3rd best record in the Western Conference, are going to host the Charlotte Hornets at 10:30, as the Charlotte Hornets are currently holding on to the 5th best record in the Eastern Conference, as this is the second night of their back-to-back, as LaMelo Ball looks to take on LeBron James. I know a lot of people are awaiting that matchup. And then outside of those games, on prime time at 7:30, the Atlanta Hawks are going to host the Oklahoma City Thunder, and the New York Knicks are going to host the Orlando Magic. At 10 o'clock, the Phoenix Suns will host the Minnesota Timberwolves, and last but not least, at the same time, at 10 o'clock, the Portland Trail Blazers will host the New Orleans Pelicans. Jumping really quickly to NCAA, there were no games played yesterday from the tournament, but the first 4 games of March Madness will happen today. So initially in the bracket, there are 68 teams instead of 64. There are 2 16 seeds and two 11 seeds that are up for grabs. Usually the 16 seeds are won by like the lower level Division I schools that are fighting for those last couple spots. And then the teams that don't necessarily have to win their conference championship but still qualify for the tournament. Actually, no, I think they're trying to play for those last 11 spots. So that's the meaning for these games. But at 5:10, it'll be the first matchup between two 16 seeds, as Mount St. Mary's faces off against Texas Southern. That game will be on True TV at 5:10. At 6:27, it'll be the first 11 seed matchup as Wichita State will face off against Drake on TBS. And Drake was a team that was ranked this season. And of course, Wichita State is a team with a lot of history in this tournament. And then jumping out to 8:40, it'll be the second 16 seed matchup as Norfolk State will face off against Appalachian State. That game will be on True TV itself. And then following the 8:40, because that game will follow the Mount St. Mary's Texas Southern game, and then following the TBS game for the first 11 seed game between Drake and Wichita State, it'll be a matchup between 11th ranked UCLA and 11th ranked Michigan State, and these will be to see where these teams will face off in their next game. And of course, as these games finish off, I will list off or describe or walk you through what happens next in the next round of this tournament. But as of right now, you have these 4 games on today as March Madness officially is underway. Staying within the arena, but jumping out to the NHL, jumping out to hockey to show you what's going on out there. And just to give a little bit of context, because of the quarantine, the NHL, all teams have to stay within their own division just to limit traveling. So starting off in Canada, because all the North Division teams play in Canada, that's the secret. The Winnipeg Jets first hosted the Montreal Canadiens, and they were able to beat the Canadiens 4-3 in overtime. Their top star was their left winger Connor, as he finished with 2 goals himself. And after picking up their 18th win of the season, the Winnipeg Jets are now sitting with the second best record in the entire North Division, tied with the Edmonton Oilers as they trailed the first place Toronto Maple Leafs by 1 or 2 points in the table, even though the Jets have played one less game, as the Jets are starting their win streak right back up. And then jumping out to Ottawa, the Ottawa Senators hosted the Vancouver Canucks, and in this one, the Canucks would beat the Senators 3-2 in a shootout. And after picking up their 15th win of the season, the Vancouver Canucks are now holding on to the 5th best record in the North Division as they trail the first place Toronto Maple Leafs by 8 points in the table, as they are currently on a 3-point win streak, or on a 3-game win streak. And then jumping out to Calgary, the Calgary Flames hosted the Edmonton Oilers as the Oilers were able to drop 4 goals in the third period in order to score 7 goals as a team to beat the Flames 7-3. And with this win, the Edmonton Oilers are tied with the Jets for the second best record in the North Division, even though they've played 3 more games than the Winnipeg Jets. But temporarily at the moment, they are sitting second in the table, 2 points behind the Toronto Maple Leafs, a team that they've played 2 more games than at the moment. Jumping out to the Eastern Division, the New York Rangers hosted the Philadelphia Flyers and posted up the most goals in the NHL since 2014, I believe. After scoring 7 goals in the second period, the Rangers were able to beat the Flyers 9-0. As their center, Mika Zibanejad, would finish with 3 goals and 3 assists. Sorry if I butchered your name. And then the goalie, Georgiev, would finish with 26 saves, not a single goal allowed. And with their 12th win of the season, the New York Rangers are now sitting 5th in the East Division as they trail the first place Capitals and Islanders in their own city by 14 points in the table. And then jumping out west, out to Vegas, the Vegas Golden Knights took the Sharks all the way to the third period. They went into the third period trailing 3-1. They were able to pull off a 5-4 win to pull off their 20th win in their 27th game of the season. With this win, the Golden Knights are sitting on top of the West Division as they sit 2 points over the second place Minnesota Wild. They are currently on a 4-game win streak with this win. And then jumping out to LA, the Kings hosted the St. Louis Blues and were able to pull off a 4-1 win. Their center Moore would get the top star of the game. As they picked up their 12th win of the season, the Kings are now sitting with the 5th best record in the West Division as they trail the first place Golden Knights by 11 points in the table, even though they've played 1 more game than the Golden Knights this season. That's what was going on with hockey yesterday. Looking out to what's going on today, of course, starting with the primetime matchups. At 7 o'clock, the New Jersey Devils will host the Pittsburgh Penguins on NBC Sports Network. At the same time, the Buffalo Sabres will host the Boston Bruins on ESPN Plus. And at the same time, the Tampa Bay Lightning will host the Chicago Blackhawks on ESPN Plus. Outside of the games on primetime, at 7 o'clock, the New York Islanders will host the Philadelphia Flyers. The Carolina Hurricanes will host the Columbus Blue Jackets, and the Florida Panthers will host the Nashville Predators. At 7:30, the Detroit Red Wings will host the Dallas Stars. At 9 o'clock, the Edmonton Oilers will host the Winnipeg Jets. And the Avalanche will host the Minnesota Wild. And then at 10 o'clock, the Anaheim Ducks will host the the Arizona Coyotes. And then last but not least, leaving the continent of North America, getting a chance to see what's going on in the world of soccer. And yesterday was Wednesday. Yesterday was the last Wednesday of the round of 16 for the 2020-2021 Champions League season. And after 6 teams had already been announced into the quarterfinal, first, Chelsea hosted Atletico Madrid after beating Atletico Madrid 1-0 in Madrid. And in the second leg, first, they were able to score a goal in the 34th minute. Ziyech off of an assist from their elite German striker, Timo Werner. And then Emerson would score in the 94th minute to give Chelsea the 3-0 aggregate win, and they would be the 7th team to advance. And then right alongside them at roughly the same time, Bayern Munich, the reigning Champions League winners, hosted Lazio after beating Lazio 4-1 on the first leg, and in the 33rd minute, they would score a penalty kick goal from their elite Polish striker, Robert Lewandowski. And then in the second goal, they would get a goal in the 73rd minute from Eric Choupo-Moting off of an assist from their elite defender, David Alaba, to go up 2-0. And then Lazio's goal in the 82nd minute off of a header from Parola would make it a 2-1 win by Bayern in Munich to have them advance to the next round by winning 6-2 on aggregates. So with Bayern Munich and Chelsea closing out the Champions League, the final 8 is now officially Porto Porto beat Juventus, so Porto was the first team, and alongside them, Borussia Dortmund will advance, PSG, Liverpool, Real Madrid, Manchester City, Bayern Munich, and Chelsea. Those are the teams that are going to advance to the final 8. They haven't announced the draw for the final 8, for the quarterfinals of Champions League yet, but those are, as of right now, those are the 8 teams that will advance to the next round. And then outside of that, PSG was able to beat Lille in the French Coupe de France as Mauro Icardi would score in the 9th minute. And then they would get 2 goals from their elite French attacker, Kylian Mbappe, first in the 44th minute off of a penalty kick, and then in the 93rd minute for some extra emphasis to help them advance to the next round. Looking forward to what's going on today as we get to Thursday, as we ease into the weekend. We are hitting the second leg of Europa League matches today. Just to touch the teams that are playing today. First, Arsenal will host Olympiacos. Arsenal currently leads that matchup 3-1 on aggregates, and they will host this matchup in London. This game will be at 1:55. At the same time, Dynamo Zagreb will host Tottenham Hotspur, as Tottenham currently leads that aggregate, or they currently lead that series 2-0 on aggregates. Roma will go to Shakhtar Donetsk, as Roma leads that series 3-0 on aggregates. AC Milan will host Manchester United, as they are both tied 1-1 on aggregates. I believe away goals should win in Europa League as well. So Manchester United, if they score more than 1, they should be at the advantage in the city of Milan. And then Ajax will play against Young Boys, as Ajax currently leads that matchup 3-0 on aggregates. And that's everything that's really going on with soccer and with sports today. I want to thank everyone once again for listening to all 34 minutes of this piece. I hope all is well. Once again, today is Thursday, March 18th, 2021, out here in this quarantine. Once all of today's exhibitions and matchups are over, I will come to you tomorrow on Friday, March 19th, 2021, to give yet another give yet another rundown of today's matchups. And I will give an individual profile, a GOAT profile on Clayton Kershaw, one of the greatest pitchers this game has ever seen. So for the last time, last but not least, thank you. I hope all is well, and I will catch you tomorrow. Peace out, and thanks for listening to The Elite.